DNA Video Productions is a full-service video producer with a fleet of drones, 4K, and HD cameras, as well as a crew of video operators. We handle commercial and residential real estate videos, as well as events for promotional purposes. We create book trailers, both live-action and running stills, music videos, and website videos. We also film series shorts for online distribution and are currently involved in filming a political parody. We specialize in low-cost movie making. Call DNA Video Productions at 941-748-6865 or visit our website at www.dnavideoproductions.com. That's www.dnavideoproductions.com. Our sponsor this month is Published, an affiliate of Village Voices. Published offers all author services from writing tips, critiques, manuscript evaluations, and editing, as well as tips to help you become published. If you prefer to self-publish, purchase the step-by-step book on publishing through Amazon, or purchase services a la carte, from formatting to creating custom covers, or even tips to gather endorsements. The staff is headed by 2 professional writers. After your books are published, either trade paper, electronically, or both, purchase marketing tips, web services, book trailers, or turn your book into an audiobook. Publish provides all your writing, publishing, and marketing needs. So give them a call at 941-748-6865. Contact them online at dgould497@aol.com or go to the website at www.publishedavillagevoices.webs.com. Good afternoon. Welcome to Culture Coast. The intro you just heard was by Al Musitano, and today we are interviewing G Wayne Tillman, who is an author of multiple books, and we're going to go way back in his history. He's been writing for many years. So, Gary, nice to have you on the show. Thank you for being here. Now, you went all the way back. When did you first want to write? Were you in high school, college? When did you know you liked writing to tell stories?
Probably elementary school. I've always been a storyteller, and I've always written short stories, and it just seemed automatic that a book should come out eventually. And it did in 1988.
All right, so where were you in your career at 1988? Were you still in college? Had you just graduated?
In 1988, I was with Franklin Mutual Funds and was grown, and decided to write a book as part of a series endorsed by Soldier of Fortune magazine.
Where was your interest there? Because I mean, the two don't seem like they would be.
No, I've always, in my pre-law enforcement career, was always interested in law enforcement, so I did things like Coast Guard Auxiliary, Special Deputy Sheriff, actually in Manatee County, Florida. I did those things because that's what I loved.
Are you from here?
No, I'm from Virginia.
From Virginia. Well, how old were you when you first came here?
Probably 40.
Okay. So you moved here about 40. Now, how old were you when you wrote this? I shouldn't be asking ages,
about
but
40.
So you wrote that first book soon after you came here.
Yes, I did.
And you have always had an interest in law enforcement because of your family background?
Yes, precisely. I think it's 17 times great-grandfather, Roger Tillman, was one of the first sheriffs in the New World. He was a sheriff in Virginia, in Accomack County, Virginia, in 1680. Bill Tillman was a frontier marshal who is a relative. He wore a badge for 50 years. He brought in Bill Doolin, who was Desperado from the Eagles song. My mother was a counterintelligence agent during World War II, so it just seemed a normal progression.
It was genetically in you to be into law enforcement.
I'm afraid so. So
You're afraid so?
Yes, I did the money-making things for years, but what really got me interested is at a very young age, actually, at 24, I was named Director of Security of a large bank in Richmond. That really whet my appetite, investigating embezzlements and working with the FBI and the local police on bank robberies and so forth.
And that was before computers were like extensively used like they are now?
Absolutely.
Things have changed a lot.
Tellers used rubber stamps, and they had ink all the way up to their elbows by the time they went home. That's absolutely
a whole
correct.
different age.
A whole different age.
And a way of catching. It was so much easier back then to rip people off because of the lack of time and checking things.
It was.
And harder to investigate.
Well, yes, it was, except there were so many of them. In the 1970s, bank robberies and kidnap extortions were rampant. And so I got a real baptism on the fire. And that whetted, as I said, whetted my appetite. So at a point in my life, decided instead of being in corporate America, I'm going to just shift over and be on the security and the law enforcement side. So I started my own executive protection and security consulting firm in St. Petersburg, Florida, and ran that for 8 years. While I was doing that, I was also a special deputy sheriff. At the end of those 8 years, I joined the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
So everything seems to have led you to both writing and law enforcement. The two seem to go hand in hand throughout your life.
Absolutely.
Investigations, even when it was with money, it was always about investigating and writing.
Right.
So the two seem to go together. Now you also had a stint as a assistant professor, which a part-time professor.
Yes.
Where you were teaching for years.
I did.
What were you teaching?
Unfortunately, it was all business because that's what my graduate degree is in.
All right.
So I taught a broad variety of business courses from finance to economics to marketing and so forth.
And all of that would have enhanced your writing abilities.
I believe so.
Okay.
At least my editing ability over other people's writing.
Okay.
But I think that it did.
All right. So now you get to the point in 1988 where you write this book, Through Soldier of Fortune. Now, that's a magazine. Was it like a series that was in Soldier of Fortune?
I read an advertisement in the magazine where they were going to do a series on the Vietnam War. This was in 88. The war ended roughly in 73 or 74. And I contacted the publisher and said, hey, I think I really want to write a book about terrorism. So he said, well, give it a shot. And I actually took it to him in Boulder, Colorado at their headquarters, and he looked it over, and a week or so later got back to me and said, hey, this seems to be pretty good stuff. We're going to send this on to St. Martin's Press in New York, and if they concur, we'll publish it. And they did. So it was the only book in the series that was not about Vietnam. It was about a young counter-terrorist. And that was in 88, and then 20 years after that, I wrote a sequel to it about that young counter-terrorist at the opposite end of his career, where he's been a security contractor for that period of time, something else that I've done.
So how did, in 88, not many of us, other than the Oklahoma, what year did that even happen?
This was
Before
well
that.
after that.
It was after that.
Well after that.
So terrorism was not on everybody's lips for the most part.
That's exactly right. As a matter of fact, the publisher of the magazine told me, he said, this is a great story, but Americans don't know anything about terrorism, generally speaking. And
we were just coming off of our love and peace era.
Yes, we were. We found out not too many years after that, with the Big Bang, that there is terrorism. But it had been pervasive in Europe and other places, in Israel certainly, in the Middle East. For years, I had Middle Eastern jihadists attacking America in this book.
Wow.
And it was
long time ago, too.
It was a long time before
it ever happened.
Before September
11th, 2001.
2001, yes.
Okay, so your first one was on terrorism, and it was published by St. Martin's Press. Your next book, what was that?
The next book was a period Western novel named Zach Bodway, Texas Ranger, about a young Texas Ranger in the 1890s that rode, probably without jurisdiction, into Oklahoma tracking a murderer. And while he was there, he interacted with a number of real characters, including my relative Bill Tillman, in helping to tame Oklahoman Indian Territory.
So
and
this is
picking
a
up a wife before he rode back.
This is a historical Western fiction.
Yeah, it very accurate historical.
Right.
One of the reviewers even commented that whenever possible, he put his horse on a horse car on a train, and he rode in the Pullman car to go from point A to point B instead of
riding his poor horse all that distance.
Exactly, and camping out under the stars. So I tried to make it as realistic as possible.
All right.
And with the experience in law enforcement and security and intel, what I've tried to do in all the books is make them realistic, almost perhaps to a fault. But
okay, so your second book, where were you in your career at that point?
That point,
the Western.
I was running my corporation, actually.
Okay, in St. Pete.
In St. Pete.
All right, so you were in a little bit of law enforcement, but you
Right.
had because of your background, in your personal background, you enjoyed the law enforcement angle and the Western angle because
Right.
your ancestor in the West was
Exactly.
famous, so you had researched that and had a lot of write what you know, and you knew a lot about that. So you write the Western, and then you go into your next phase, and you don't write for a long time.
Actually, I wrote a book and didn't do anything with it for a long time. I wrote a book, The Legend of Bill Tillman, about my relative.
Is this a fiction or a nonfiction? Biography?
It's a historical novel, and it would be a biography if I could footnote all the conversations, but I cannot.
Okay, I have
But
you.
everywhere,
Based on the life of.
it's not only based on the life of, that was a 30-year process, writing that book.
Okay.
I went everywhere
Have
he
you-
tracked somebody.
Have you published that one yet?
Yes, that's available on Amazon right now.
On Amazon or Kindle or both?
On Amazon as a Kindle ebook.
It's
Yes.
an Kindle ebook. Okay, it's a Kindle. It's available as a Kindle, and will you be releasing
Yes.
it as a published book as well?
I will.
Okay, so that will be coming out soon over the course of the next year or so.
Yes.
All right.
And I might add that the cover of that book shows Bill Tillman's actual 6-gun.
Very cool. All right, now we get to the next point in your life where you no longer have the security company. You move into a whole different brand of law enforcement, which was
The FBI.
you joined the FBI. Now, were you invited or did you contact them? How did that come about?
Well, there's only one way.
Okay.
You go on USA Jobs and make an application, and 6 or 8 months later, they contacted me and hired me subject to passing the background investigation. What I did, because
but
of
you
my
weren't an
age,
agent. You were a consultant?
No, my title initially was security specialist.
Okay.
And what I did is continuity of operations, and I wrote a lot of manuals for the Bureau. And I did things like, I was at one point responsible for protective intelligence, threats against senior officials and things like that, responsible for studying those threats and analyzing the threats. It was very interesting work. Writing was interesting.
While you were doing that, were
probably
there
1,000 pages.
Just curious, while you were doing that, were there any attempts on any of the presidents or senior officials' lives during that period?
No, the presidents and
I know, and
those
y'all seem
people
to
come
have
under the
stopped.
Secret Service.
Okay. Not the FBI.
Yeah, and as to threats against people within the Department of Justice, I just can't talk about that.
Okay. All right, so you were doing these manuals for them, and you're helping them do research on how to figure out who the bad guys are and where they
I
might
was
be.
doing risk assessment, basically. That if I have a specialty, it's risk assessment. And that's been true since I was a bank security director at 24 years
Same
old.
kind of investigation, and it helps you find the bad guys. All right, very cool. Now, you have finished with the FBI. You've retired.
Right.
And you decided to start writing again.
Actually, I continued writing.
The whole time you were in?
Yeah, the whole time I was in. everything I write has to be
Cleared by
vetted
them.
and cleared. And I started a series, and I'm on the fourth book in that series, about a young lawman, now a sheriff, in modern-day Oklahoma. His name is Jack Landers. It has become somewhat popular. And
Now, how does one become a sheriff in modern day times? Is that an elected position?
yes, it
Okay.
is.
So he
And-
was elected sheriff.
Well, he was a state investigator with the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, and then he was appointed sheriff the first time because his predecessor was killed in a bank robbery. He then proceeds to go after the serial bank robber that killed his predecessor. His appointed sheriff would be up for election probably 3 years thereafter, because I think the man had been elected a year before.
Okay, so then he gets elected in a future book.
Right.
All right, but not in the first book.
Not
He's
in the
just
first
appointed. Okay.
Yeah, and
So
actually that would be by then the third book. The first two books he was actually a state investigator.
okay. So he's just a modern lawman. He's not a
Yes.
sheriff until the third book.
Right.
Okay. Very interesting. Now, how long ago did you start writing this series?
2005, 2007.
So
somewhere
while you
that
were in
range.
there, but you didn't publish any of them, or you did publish them at that
Uh,
time?
I guess I published the first one in maybe 2007, 2008.
Okay. Now, when you retired, what happened? Were you bored?
And I just decided to write full time, and I probably write 4 hours a day minimum right now. And,
Every day, or do you once in a while take a day off?
almost every day.
Almost every day. That's
Yeah.
a very good habit for
Yeah.
a writer to have.
My wife
Dedicating
teases
it.
me because I'm not always sure what day of the week it is, and I don't care. But because my days, it doesn't matter whether it's Sunday or whether it's Wednesday.
Right.
I still get up early and I
Do
write.
your writing and do your
I
thing.
write also late at night, and it's what I love to do.
So you enjoy doing it, and you're coming along with all these books, and they're all available on Kindle, or how far have you gotten with the books on Kindle?
All of the books are on Kindle except for the first one, the one that was written in 1988, because the world has changed so much with regard to terroristic threats, politics, everything since 1988.
And yet you had a jihadist in it, so it's almost like it was a futuristic at that time.
It was. After 9/11, I almost expected a knock on the door, but thank God that never came. But I've got ideas for years more of books. In doing some family history, I have come up with a post-war between the states great-great-uncle who was an adventurer. And in the 1860s and 70s, he explored in Hawaii when nobody was there, almost,
So,
except Hawaiians.
Are you
And-
going to make these novels because you want to get conversations and dialogue and make them
Yes.
interesting and have a plot, but you're going to
Absolutely.
base it on their lives?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
they're kind of based on the real thing, but you're fictionalizing some of the incidents that occur.
Yeah, exactly.
Very-
And this, I came across the picture of this great-great-uncle and a little bit of his history, and the fact that in the 1800s he was exploring in Hawaii. He went to the Klondike Gold Rush and discovered gold. He was just an adventurer all of his
So you
life.
have a love of history as well as law and the writing.
Absolutely.
So you really like the history too. In fact, we were talking earlier, and you said you are also interested in investigating some of the stuff even further back in Europe, in your family line.
Yeah,
And you might end up going back and doing a series on that.
it's entirely possible. We're going to certainly go to Scotland in the spring and go to the old the ruins of the family home there. And I just found out that my first maternal great-grandfather to come to the country came here about 2 years after the British defeated the Highlanders, which he was, at Culloden. And so after the war, he must have been a Jacobite fighting against the crown. He, instead of sticking around, he came to the United States. So I'd like to explore that a little more, and as a matter of fact, am due to meet with the head of the Caroline County, Virginia Historical Society in the next month or so, and
do some more research.
Walk some of the ground. I've actually been on on the ground where the family home was, and do some more research on that. So anything I do like that is going to probably end up in a book.
And because it ends up exciting your interest, and
Right.
if you're excited, then you're able to portray that to the page. And so you think you might have a series about the Scottish side. What about the French side that you mentioned, the Knights of the Templar? You think you might go in that direction too?
I don't know. It's certainly something that is ripe for exploration.
And you have a link there as well,
I do.
family-wise, so
I do.
that might be going even
back to
deeper into
Charlemagne.
history. Yeah,
Yeah.
way further back.
Yeah.
So,
So it's just a matter of how much time.
well, if you seem to have plenty, if you're writing 4 hours a day, and
Yeah.
then you get to time travel too. Now, do you write when you're traveling?
Historically, I have, yes. I plan to continue doing that.
Yeah. How many books do you write a year?
I've written 3 in the year since almost a year since I've retired.
So 3 books a year. That's pushing it because you also have to edit them. So
Right.
an average of 2 books a year. Yeah, you can
I've got
write
a few
quite
more.
you got quite a few more in there
I hope
to
so.
finish.
I hope so.
You just got started retiring. So,
Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
feel very retired, except I
except
don't
this
wear a
is what
tie
you
anymore.
love. Yes, but you love what you do,
Yeah.
and then you can do it all your life, right
But-
to the
but I
last
love
day.
what I did in the law enforcement and the security world too.
And do you miss that?
I thought I would, but I've been so busy I haven't had a chance to.
That's a good way
Yeah.
to look at it.
Yeah.
That the writing has taken over and made it worthwhile. So you're planning. Do you see an end to the saga of your sheriff, your modern day sheriff? Got it timed out where like 5 books, 6 books, and you're done with that series, or do you?
Initially, yes. Right now, I'm not so sure because there's a logical thing that I can do with him based on his family background and so forth. That's good for another 3 or 4 books. So maybe 10 books.
Okay.
If
So
the
he might
readers continue
reach-
to like the guy, then I'll continue to give him to them.
Okay, and for your other series that you're thinking of, do you think you might have a whole series, or will it just be standalones?
Maybe 1 or 2. And I'll just explore those as I go.
And if they come to life and want more, you'll have to give them more.
I'll have to give them more.
Now, your
the Jack
books,
Landers series, I think I'm going to take that to at least 8 or 10 books.
now, do you think you'll ever do one based more on the FBI, or will you just stay with the westerns and the Scottish history and that type of
I
thing?
will.
Because that way you don't run into problems with
Exactly.
the FBI.
We're somewhat constrained. I like taking the authorial license a little bit. Having said that, though, from a procedural standpoint, I think most of these books are pretty correct.
Most people who write about special agents and the FBI are not members and have never been members of the FBI. They just go and talk to some consultants
Right.
that are there to get the feel of it. But for the most part, FBI is really tight on what they allow people
Absolutely.
to write, correct?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
when we read most of the FBI books, they're not really they're just the surface stuff that everybody can see. We don't get any of the inner workings.
That's generally true.
Okay.
Now, a number of retired FBI people, including agents, have written books that have made it through the vetting process, and at least I would say that they are procedurally correct. Some of the other things, like the TV shows and so forth.
Don't you love TV shows?
My wife refuses to go to any type of mystery or law enforcement movie with me, or even a Western movie, because I sit there and I look at, no, this
That's not
is
real.
1869 and they're shooting 1873 rifles. Didn't happen. Haven't been invented yet. Or they're wearing the Spanish-American War uniforms during the Indian Wars in the 1870s. Wrong. So I can be a bit of a pain in those regards, I'm afraid.
And they would never do that. That's not the way
Right.
it's. I know I have the same problem because
Yeah.
I see so many of the TV shows and they hire consultants. So I don't know how this happens, but just for the record, if you have a burglar in your home, you don't go to the police station because the police aren't at the police station. The
Right.
police are out patrolling the roads.
Absolutely.
And they have to come to your house to do the fingerprints and to investigate what actually happened. But I have seen so many people, because on TV you go to the police station to report
And there's
the
a desk
crime,
sergeant.
and he just has to
Right.
send a cop back out to your house, and you have to go back and meet him. So it cracks me up every time I see them walk in and there's a desk sergeant. Most of the time the sergeant's not at the desk. It's some secretary who's going to tell dispatch to send an officer to your
Right.
house. It's not even an officer unless they've got somebody on injured list.
Absolutely.
It's just, it cracks me up, the difference between reality and television, because that's a huge difference that people don't seem to realize. And I can't tell you how many people go to the police station erroneously.
Well, I did some work with a movie. It was a remake of the movie High Noon. And what I learned, and the movie was actually pretty correct.
They tried
But,
to.
but what I learned is not what the consultant says, it's what the director thinks is most impactful. That really,
And what the audience will enjoy.
Yes.
So they'll just keep going to that police station
Yes, they
and
will.
talking to a detective right up front without ever writing a
They'll be
report.
flying
It's like,
spaceships to the police station, but it's still going to be the same scenario.
yeah, thank you so. Oh, do you have a website?
At this point, I just have my author page on Amazon.com.
So you haven't got your own website yet?
No.
You be working on one of those?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to have a website in the near future.
But in the meantime, just go to Amazon.com, the Kindle store, and look up G Wayne Tillman.
So it's G Wayne, not Gary. It's G Wayne Tillman on Amazon and the book section, and you should get to your author page, and you'll see most of what's already on Kindle. And as you get them up on Amazon, your published books.
And a author site on Facebook, G Wayne Tillman on Facebook, and
Oh, good. Okay.
and a LinkedIn site.
All right. Very good.
Okay.
And that sounds like you're starting your marketing and building your platform, so that's a good way to
That's
start.
the most important and
That's-
worst part of it all.
The hardest for an author, I know.
Yes.
You want to write, you don't want to market.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you so much for being on Culture Coast.
Thank you, Dudley.
Nightmares. Frightful visions during the night, causing terror and loss of sleep. Daymares. Frightful visions during the day, causing fear and paranoia. Gothmares. Gothic visions that can happen anytime, causing horror and disgust. But sometimes they offer answers. Read Gothmares if you dare. Gothmares, a young adult novel by Al Musitano, available on Amazon and fine bookstores everywhere.
Village of the Arts, the largest artist colony in the state of Florida, located on 42 acres, includes artists, homes, galleries, gardens, and restaurants featuring handcrafted gifts, fine art sculptures, painting, photography, enviro art, healing arts, books, mystics, and musical variety. A few of the galleries are unique in their offerings. Village Voices specializes in books and art created exclusively by Florida residents. The Dancing Crane Gallery offers fine art, custom jewelry, and unique, innovative art. The Village Mystic offers all things metaphysical: meditation, massage, mediums, aromatherapy, psychics, shamans, Reiki healing, and the gem mine, where you can mine for your own personal treasure. Yoga Arts offers classes or one-on-one coaching. Musicians and bands can be found throughout the area. Many of the artists and musicians offer classes. Restaurants and bakeries provide respite for the weary and magic for the foodies. Visit during the first Friday Art Walk and stroll through the shops and galleries enjoying free appetizers, wine, music, and demonstrations. For hours and information, please visit the website at www.villageofthearts.com.